What's up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. It's time for a review of the new Breaking Benjamin record Ember, out this past Friday, April 13th. Well, I'm reviewing the second half of the record anyway, because with this one, Breaking Benjamin have really fallen into that trap, which is all too common these days, of just way too many pre-album singles. Because when you look at this track list, excluding the intro and outro, there are only 10 songs on the record, and 5 of them were already out before the release date. And actually, if you want to see my thoughts on those 5 initial singles, I did a blog post about them. Link is down in the description. So Breaking Benjamin, they're definitely one of those bands that, like it or not, fit pretty snugly into that hard rock slash alt metal slash butt rock category, alongside the likes of the Seethers and Shinedowns and Skillets and 3 Days Graces of the world. And you know, even though as a hardcore metal fan, I can't help but speak of that whole lane in a derogatory manner sometimes, the reality is that there are songs, and in some cases even albums, by a lot of those bands that I genuinely enjoy. So I always try to keep an open mind. And with this new record, Ember, Breaking Benjamin, they definitely drummed up enough excitement to make me want to give this thing a listen and give it a review, give it an honest review. Now with this record, before we even talk about the music, the one thing we have to get out of the way early is something that's kind of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Something that's, in this style of music, just the perennial Achilles heel, and that is the lyrics. Now, I've been up on my soapbox about this a lot, so I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I still would be giving this record a really dishonest review if I just didn't address it right up front. On this album, like Breaking Benjamin albums prior, mind you, there is the continued use and abuse of just the most cringy, cliche, edgy rock lyrics that you can fucking think of. Every Breaking Benjamin song, he's cold, he's broken, he's fading away, there's an emptiness inside, there's nothing left, there's a fire within. Just every laughable dime a dozen phrase for either emotional angst or overcoming emotional angst, and on and on and on. It's on the last records, it's on here. It's all over this record. The song Tourniquet, it uses "You Won't Break Me," "The Fire Within," "I Don't Want to Live Inside This Hell." The song Save Yourself, that uses, well, save yourself. It uses "Nothing Left." Fucking Fade Away, which is one of the worst ones. In rock and metal music, it goes both ways. That one pops up in "The Dark of You." "This Life Has Left Me Cold," that's in Red Cold River. The song Down, it has "Break These Chains" and "Empty Inside." Bruh. Look, there's nothing wrong with writing about being upset or writing about overcoming being upset. I think being upset is how a lot of great music is made. But at least find a more original or more detailed way to explain it. Like, tell us a story. How are you fading away? Why are you fading away? What are you fading away from? You know? Like, give us a little something. Which brings me to my next point here, which is another criticism that hasn't really changed from past Breaking Benjamin albums to this one. But sometimes on this record, the angst and the emotional despair is a little overcooked and a little oversold, if you will. When you listen to the opening cuts on this record, Feed the Wolf and Red Cold River and Tourniquet back to back to back, by the end you feel like you're kind of suffocating in angst. At least I do. Like, the way these lyrics are delivered, you'd think that the dude singing them is like out in the woods by himself, like in the movie The Revenant, just like fighting for his life. When in reality, the guy's worth like $4 million and travels the world playing rock music for a living. Which, look, emotional issues will follow you everywhere you go, whether you're successful, unsuccessful, rich, poor, doesn't matter. But I guess just as a listener, at least for me, having this constant turmoil and constant anxiety shoved in your face with no real resolution or narrative to it, it's kind of just imposed on you, that starts to get a little taxing after a while. Like, by the time I get to that insufferable ballad, "The Dark of You," I'm pretty tapped out. With that shit out of the way though, once I'm able to set aside those obvious gripes of mine, I do find some really great hard rock music to enjoy on this record. Like the lead single and album opener, Feed the Wolf, that's got that searing main riff that lands on that dissonant note. It has a real fucking bite to it. Absolutely love that. Very dynamic chorus too, which finds frontman Ben Burnley kind of switching between that pseudo scream of his and something a bit more melodic. Red Cold River is pretty cool too. That main groove that brings a little bit of double bass to the mix definitely has a metallic edge to it. And I guess to get really specific here, arrangement-wise, when you get to that second verse, I love how the clean guitar is panned all the way left, and then on the right, there's something completely different going on, which, you know, in these verses that are kind of supposed to be this anxiety-ridden, like calm before the storm, it definitely gives it a chunk of atmosphere. And with Red Cold River at the end of the track, getting that little taste of some China cymbal and some fucking double bass is just awesome. Although ironically, as a huge metalhead, parts like that actually drive me a little nuts, because with songs like Red Cold River and a few others on here, you just can't help but get that urge to want to push that aggression up that extra notch. You know, give me fucking 30 beats per minute faster tempos, give me screaming, give me tons more double bass. Kidding aside, that's actually one of the reasons that metalheads struggle so much with this hard rock genre, is because it's like if you did crystal meth for a month and then you smoked weed. You'd be like, where's that fucking kick? There's no kick to this. You know what I mean? It's like you're so used to wanting harder and faster and meaner, and sometimes these parts, they have a meanness to them, but you could just hear, you could just visualize it as a more metallic version of what it is, and it'll drive you a little nuts. You'll get this little itch. You're like, okay, I get it. This is mean, but if it did this and this and this and this, and I threw a fucking blast beat here and a death growl here, it'd be so much sicker. And that's something that I've had to learn to like let go of as I work backwards, as I got huge into extreme metal, and then I had to, when I got more back into hard rock bands that I hadn't heard of before, I had to learn how to dial that itch back. And that's a genuine issue that I'm sure a lot of metalheads have. It's why a lot of metal fans bash bands like this. But in reality, it's just what you're used to. And that last point of mine definitely applies to Red Cold River, as well as Psycho, with that killer groove in the verses there, and Blood, and Close Your Eyes, which is more riff oriented. Just the songs that have the metallic edge, you just have this urge to want to push them even further in that direction. But you know, one common thing that I enjoy throughout this project is just Benjamin Burnley's real versatile vocal performance. Like, I especially enjoy when he showcases his wide range in a narrow time span of music. Like in choruses like Feed the Wolf and Save Yourself and Torn in Two, when he kind of leans in and out of that falsetto that he's got, that constant state of being in motion, being in flux, I really think is what breathes a lot of life into these songs. Because I have this feeling that these same lyrics, same melodies, if they were delivered by someone who was a little more monotonous or a little less versatile, they wouldn't have the same impact. When you listen to Ben deliver these lyrics and these melodies, you feel like you're listening to a guy who's changing as he's singing. One minute he's roaring, one minute he's kind of got that falsetto going. Sometimes he's got more of a straightforward rock voice. I definitely got to give him credit. He's a great vocalist. He could use a ghostwriter on the lyrics maybe, but he's a great vocalist. Speaking of Torn in Two, that is a favorite of mine, with that fucking monster riff, and I love that little lead guitar line that comes in the chorus. You can pick it out if you're listening closely. That's definitely, in terms of the non-singles, the 5 album cuts that we've been revealed in the last few days, that's definitely my favorite of them. It's already in that workout rotation for me, which means it's probably going to be a keeper. Just a killer song, absolute winner. Also, I really got to compliment bassist Aaron Brush's sound on this album, because when you listen to songs like Tourniquet and of course the very bass heavy verses in the song Psycho, the bass fills things out really nicely. And I swear to God, it makes this album, having the bass mixed the way it is and having the tone that he has, it makes this album sound 10 times better. I swear to God, because if the bass was buried in Justice for All style or Lamb of God style, this record would fucking kill me. Between the super angsty in-your-face lyrics and those really processed guitar tones, you need a little bottom end to fill it out. And I'm so glad that his performance is as good as it is, and also you got to give credit just to the mixing. You know, if anything's going to really wear on you with Ember, it's just going to be the formula of it all. Like, take a track like Down, for instance. Down is the perfect example of the kind of song where if you've heard a Breaking Benjamin album in the past, or if you've even heard the first half of this record, you already know what it's going to sound like before you hit play. And I hate that. If you're going to keep me interested in an album beyond a few catchy singles, you're going to have to expand your horizons a little more. The formulas are what kill me, especially in music like this. So with that stuff in mind, when I enjoy the good moments on this record, and there are good moments on this record, there's a certain element of me kind of turning my brain off a little bit and sort of deliberately ignoring those formulaic song structures and those cheesy lyrics and things that could otherwise hinder my enjoyment of these songs. Like, I've been watching a lot of The Wire recently. So what I try to do is I try to just think about like fucking Omar fucking people up with shotguns, or just something real violent and real intense, so I can pair this music with a visual and I can kind of make it a soundtrack to something, so I can just lock in with those heavy riffs and those dramatic hooks, and I don't read too much into it, and because if I start thinking too much, I'm not gonna like this. And one more thing, like I said earlier, Breaking Benjamin released 5 of the 10 songs beforehand, and guess what? With the exception of Torn in 2, all the fucking singles are way better than the album cuts. So this should be a lesson to bands in terms of album releases. Just because doing shit like that, while it may make sense in an era where we don't really sell records anymore, you're still showing too much of your hand. You're giving too much away, so that when the record comes out, it doesn't have a chance to make that real impact, to really blow people away and go, wow, I didn't expect this to be so good. Because you've already heard, in this case, you've heard the best moments. So I really wish we could go back to 1, 2, 3 maximum promotional singles. This shit like that bums me out. So, you know, as I've kind of indicated already, you could easily rip this album to shreds if you really wanted to, but in my view, since Breaking Benjamin have some genuinely heavy fucking riffs and memorable choruses and some fairly believable emotion behind them, I prefer to kind of see past those negatives and just enjoy as much of it as I can, which in the case of Ember is the majority of the record. And there's the other angle to this, which I haven't even touched on, which is when you take Ember and compare it to past Breaking Benjamin releases, like Dear Agony and We Are Not Alone especially, to me, this is some of their heaviest stuff, and I think their longtime fans would agree with me on that. So, you know, I'm gonna roll positive on this one. Breaking Benjamin, Ember, it gets a 6 out of 10 for me. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking here or checking out some of my similar reviews and content that's available on my channel. I really appreciate you guys watching and liking and commenting and just supporting in general, so thank you so much, and I will see you soon.